The Tea Party message really is rooted in, number one, that the guiding document for all legislation in this country has to be the Constitution of the United States, and that if that legislation cannot be justified by the Constitution of the United States, it simply can't be pursued. Even if it sounds like good policy, the process is to go back and amend the Constitution, not to simply ram these things through. There's been a very conscious, calculated disregard for the Constitution of the United States by this president and this Congress, and that is concerning to the Tea Party movement, I think, first and foremost. Second has been, the Tea Party movement also is an acronym, T, standing for tax enough already. And our philosophy there is, by the time you get done adding up federal income taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, municipal taxes, there's a lot of Americans that are taking home less than half of what they earn. And it's destroying not just the lives of those people, but the lives of all Americans. Because I believe, and I think the Tea Party movement believes, that money in the hands of the people is better spent and better utilized in most cases than it is in our government, even while acknowledging that there are some core responsibilities of our federal government that need to be sustained and protected. But we're an overtaxed nation. And then I think third is just, from the standpoint of the span of government, is that our founders, obviously in the history of the United States, was that 50 states created, these 50 states that exist right now, a handful of them back then, 13, created our federal government, not the other way around. It wasn't the federal government created the states. And that the powers that our federal government have taken on are in most cases better taken on and better executed by state governments as opposed to federal governments. And that really, in a kind of nutshell, are some of the guiding principles of the Tea Party movement. I'd add finally, as I pointed out today, that I think the Tea Party movement's a very God-believing movement. And while it's not obviously affiliated with any organized religion or any sect of religion, I think there's a broad understanding that the founders of this nation were God-believing Americans, and that in our Constitution, in our Declaration, in most of the founding writings of our nation, there was an understanding that our liberty was connected to and given to us by God, not by government. And so one of our arguments that we put forward, and I think it's an important one, is that government is not empowered to take away what God has given us. Well, what's happening in our country are some very dangerous trends. Number one, we have a president and a liberal congressional leadership that have really been ignoring and violating the Constitution of the United States. I mean, whether that's been 10th Amendment issues, Second Amendment issues, the growth of the federal government. Our federal government is taking on powers, ownership of banks, ownership of insurance companies, ownership of mortgage companies, ownership of automobile companies that is far beyond anything that our founders envisioned. And so a big part of what we're trying to do is get a restoration toward the traditional historical values of the United States. And we're also, I think, putting forward our own agenda. I mean, our agenda is one of tax relief. It's one of limited government. It's one of seeing free enterprise prosper in the United States. It's one of a strong America, as I spoke about here today in Trenton, from the standpoint of defense for U.S. interests abroad and U.S. interests all over the world. So it is an agenda that's pretty antithetical to that of this president, but it's one that is really catching on quickly with the American people. Well, the first thing I encourage every American to do is to get active in their local Tea Party organization. And if you're already active in your Tea Party organization, one of the best things you can do is actually to try to foster collaboration between other Tea Party organizations. This movement was started more or less from the ground up A few of us have been involved in a national level, but we're more or less facilitators. We need really, I think, to continue to build the movement, both in size, in influence, and in collaboration. And then I think the second part is that the movement, while it's been very rally-based, is going through a logical transition now in an election year where we're really positioned, I think, to have a significant impact in electing liberty-minded candidates in November 2010. I can't think of any movement in the history of American politics that has grown this fast, this quickly. And we haven't done it by holding views that are antithetical to the American people. We're growing because the American people know this country's on the wrong course, and we're offering a preferable one. In fact, this Tea Party movement really has no barrier to entry except kind of a belief in those principles. So, it's in fact, some of the studies done recently show very large representation by independents and Democrats. In fact, independents and Democrats, I think, exceed Republicans. All parties are welcome, and really outside of those core values, all viewpoints are welcome. This really is a hugely inclusive movement. I'm hopeful in the year to come it's going to become even more inclusive and even larger. Well, I have to say, I've been involved in 25 years now, 30, I guess, almost, in public policy and politics. And I've seen some hugely exciting things from, having worked in the White House, seeing presidential elections, being engaged heavily in American foreign policy, being involved here in the state of New Jersey with one of our state's greater governors, Tom Kean. I have never seen anything that rivals the excitement, the dynamism, and the power that I think is stemming from this Tea Party movement. It's very difficult for me to predict here's where this movement's going to be a year from now or even 6 months from now, but it is clear to me that it is influencing the course of history in this country, and it is proving a truly a movement of historical consequence. And I think most Americans are starting to wake up to the reality that something really big is happening here.